all these like retired, they watch everything.
If you look at the view count, it's more than you would think.
That's good. That's good to know.
I'm glad that's.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I mean, your 3-5 meeting had 18 views so far. Alright, so this is the Parks Commission for 312, and this meeting is being recorded in accordance with open meeting law. I think we can go ahead and call it to order. So I think if we have some guests here who want to jump ahead and let me find that agenda, talk about, specifically to discuss the pay rate for the junior counselor position. So I think in the past when we've done this, we've paid it as sub minimum wage, which is $13 an hour, which is something as a municipality we're allowed to do. And I believe you guys would like to ask us to just make it minimum wage. So I figured might as well just talk it out and hear both sides of it, because I don't think I explained your perspective that well.
Yeah, could, so thanks, Jeremy Stoll, Town Administrator, Jen O'Neill, HR Coordinator. So I was just surprised to hear that we paid folks lower than minimum wage. I didn't know that was kind of an option to us. So if you can kind of talk through the genesis of that and the rationale and kind of legal ability.
Yeah, let me, so we started the junior counselor program. I'm trying to find the job posting. I think it was 2 years ago. We've been talking about it forever. The program used to be huge, and then it kind of really fell apart. And then over the last 10 or so years, we've built things back up. But now, we're huge. So the goal was to set up a program where you could bring in these kids that were maybe slightly too old to attend the program, not quite old enough to be counselors. We generally hire starting at 16. The program ends at 14. So the idea was to create a junior counselor position, and then the idea you'd have those kids that could come work for you. Because the other problem is you hire these counselors, they work 2 years, then they go off, they get an internship, and they're gone. And we were having 50-60% turnover. So we decided to do that, and then as kind of a compromise on how to pay this, we decided to pay them $13 an hour, and the idea was it would allow us to hire a few more of them. I'm just going to find the exact thing. So there is an opinion letter by the Mass AG's office. Apparently, and I mean, it's actually kind of surprising, apparently the town is exempt from the state minimum wage law. So we could pay the $7 an hour federal minimum. That's the only requirement.
And let me just add to that too, because I've been on the parks for quite a while. If you go back in time, I actually worked at the parks when I was a kid. And that was during my whole teenage right through college years. It was hard to get in. So we've grown tremendously, but also having raised, in Dan's point, we tried the counselor and training program, but they would pay. That didn't go anywhere. Parents would want to pay for their kids to, it would basically go, there's that gap here, that 8th, 9th grade gap here. What do you do with your kids, right? So a couple things. One, I'd say one of the things I'm most proudest about is how many kids we hire. We hire a lot of Mendon kids, and we were pretty strict about Mendon only, but we had to branch out some because we grew so much. So as a parent that raised 5 kids who in Mendon, 8th and 9th gap year, what do you do with your kids? What do you do with your kids? So we decided we could offer something to those parents that they could come in. They wouldn't pay, but we would pay them, all right? Now, keep in mind, I did, this is current day, but I did some research. Everywhere I looked, the kids that are junior counselors have to be at least 16. Nobody has 14, 15-year-olds that I saw. Maybe in the bigger areas than ours, so honestly for me, I also think these kids don't have the expenses that once you get a car, that's what we thought of, we said, because we could have done that with the whole camp, right? We could have said we're going under, we're not gonna go, we as a group, I don't think John was on at that point, said no, let's pay minimum, we're gonna pay everybody minimum. A little bit probably more his convincing than me, because I'm not a big fan of paying a young person that much money, and I think it's a lot of money, but we are. So these kids, in my opinion, are in between their, time in their lives where the parents I can't imagine the parents aren't blown away by the fact their eighth graders making $13 an hour. You know, so I'm really not convinced that minimum wage, and let me further that. So we start paying them 16. Now do we have to pay the other kids 16, 25, 16, 50? It kind of goes up from there, so the ripple effect's pretty. And I speak of this from owning a business. My wife and I own a daycare on the street, and that ripple effect is pretty tough, pretty tough. Keep in mind, it's not my money. It has nothing to do with code, so just keep that in mind. It's more so my thinking of, I feel like we're doing the community is huge service by paying these kids even $13 an hour.
So I'm reminded, my first job was at this hot dog hamburger stand in Northeast Pennsylvania, right? And minimum wage was $5.25 when I started. And somebody started like a week after me. And I was 15, 16 years old. And the person who started a month, a week, whatever after me, I started minimum wage and they started at like $6.25.
Yeah.
And Bosco as well. She has a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're doing the same job.
Yeah.
So my thing is, the wage we're paying people should be completely divorced from what their life outside of work is. My mortgage costs more than my peer's mortgage in Upton or Grafton or whatever, but I don't get paid more because my life outside of work costs more. Those are two separate sides of the house. So the fact that they're 14 or 15 rather than 16 and they don't have a car, they don't have a house, I don't think that should factor in at all.
Can you explain why though? Why wouldn't that factor in? I actually am more interested in, because I keep going, but I think you're trying to explain why you think they should get minimum, so keep going.
Yeah, not really. So, because, I have we're paying folks to come in and do a job and, provide a service. And whether they are supporting their family with some percentage of their wages, or they're buying, ice cream and pizza on the weekends, where it's irrelevant to us.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So that's what I mean by, their life outside of work.
Yep.
I've also taken unpaid internships in my life, including in high school, and I could do that because my family kind of was in a position that allowed me to do that. But I also had to work over the summer to pay for gas in my car and things like that.
Right,
So
right.
I've made it in each role that I've been in that I make sure that whatever interns that we have, we pay our interns a fair wage. And I think of this as an entry-level internship almost, and to pay something less than minimum wage is making the town as an employer a place that me as an employee would not want to work. And that's been something I've been trying to do since I've been here, that I want to make this place a place where I would want to work at whatever stage in my life it would be. And paying minimum wage, I think, is the literal minimum that we can do in a situation like this. And so I know we are exempt, right? We could pay these people $7 an hour. I think we are, and I think you've done a great job as a commission to be a force for good in the community, right? You are supporting, parents and families and kids. And I think the kind of logical step for us is to say, let's honor the obligation that the state thinks everybody should have, right? Because you can get a work permit at 14, right? To go work. So you can go work at, Cumberland Farms and make more than this, right?
You could, but they don't want to. That's been the feedback I've gotten from kids. The great example is you go bag groceries and they all hate it. Any kid I've spoken with hates it. They can't stand it. And I'm not really disputing your point, but I think they enjoy the job too. It's kind of fun. They're outside, they're playing, they like being with the kids. For some of them, it gives them an idea of what they might want to do with their career. Yeah. It's kind of cool, so they can say.
I enjoy my job too, but that doesn't mean you should pay me less.
But I think there's a distinction between a 13 or 14-year-old and an adult. Yeah, that's just my view. I completely understand your point, and I really appreciate, what you're saying about, I really do, as a long-term resident, that you want people to come work for us. I guess the difference for me is it's seasonal, and it's a young child. I still think, I'm older, so I think of it as a child, but I do appreciate your point, and I understand it, to be honest, I do understand it.
Well, thanks for saying that. And you know, what, this is all paid out of the Parks revolving fund, right?
Yeah.
And there's a $220,000 balance in the fund.
No, I mean, that's my point, is that we can afford it.
Yeah,
And again, I want it to be clear that it's not coming out of so it's not something that I am saying, oh, I'm losing money here, you know, I'm not. I mean, I very, very much have just strong feelings around a 14-year-old making $16 an hour, to be honest with you. And it's not relative to what I made when I was a kid, you know, it's relative to today and, you know, so, but, that's my view. So, you know.
okay. Anything else to add, Jen?
Well, there is a bill in the state legislature currently to put municipalities into the $15 an hour minimum wage. I mean, if it passes, we're gonna have to do it anyways.
Yeah.
So I think we should just do it now before we're told we have to do it. Not to mention, and I disagree with your opinion on their kids. We should be paying them less than. They're, like Jeremy said, they're doing the same job. I did ask Dan for job descriptions between a junior counselor and a counselor. I also have a concern with employee starts at 14, we're paying them $13 an hour. Next year they're 15, are we still gonna pay them $13 an hour even though they're in year 2? And then year 3, we're paying them, as a 16-year-old, we're gonna pay them more. But then another employee starts year 1 at 15 and we're paying them $13 an hour. Year 2, just because they're a year older, because the way their birthday falls, their birthday could be a day ahead of theirs. And we're gonna now pay them 15, but we're now paying the 15-year-old 13. I disagree. I think we should be paying counselors year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. We should have, if they start in year 1, they get $15 an hour. Year 2, they can then go up to $15.25. I totally disagree with not paying minimum wage. Minimum wage, I agree that minimum wage at $15 an hour is a lot of money for a starting job. I made $3.25 as a minimum wage. I'm now dating myself. But we as a community, as a town, should be doing best practices. We put this out to our labor attorney. He thinks just because, you know, yes, we can pay less, but a best practice would be to pay everybody a minimum wage. We did this with the seniors in the abatement program. A few years ago, they were making $11 an hour. And I said, no, we need to pay them a minimum wage.
And we're in the same obligation under the senior tax abatement program that we have to pay the federal minimum wage?
Were they sub-minimum wage?
Yes, they were
I think
$11
do
an
that.
hour.
Yeah.
And when I came on board, I again thought that was inappropriate to be paying them to do a job that we could hire somebody, we'd have to pay them more money to do. We should pay them at least the minimum wage.
Just to clarify on how we've handled the years of and pay, what we've been doing, and now this is just the 3rd year, junior counselors is open to 14 and 15-year-olds. Legally, we can hire a counselor at 14 if we wanted to. There have been occasions, like I think last year there was somebody who was turning 16, and based on their resume and their interview, we did hire them directly as a counselor. But usually we would not bring somebody back for a 2nd year as a junior counselor, at least we have not yet. So you work as a junior counselor and then maybe you're only 15, but at that point, you know, we've seen a whole year of you, we're comfortable bringing you back as a counselor. And we also have done 25-cent raises for returning. And I believe the current kind of mostly set structure, so it's counselors 15, senior counselors are start at 16, the rec manager role is 17. So there is like a bump commensurate with experience. So that's kind of how it's worked out. And I think that's one of the conversations we're going to have this year is if we hire 10 junior counselors again this summer, it is very likely we will not have room to hire all 10 of them as counselors next year. We had really low turnover this year, which is great, but.
Yeah, so we can go just to backtrack. A couple things. I really, it's important that you know that I really, really like having this conversation with you guys. You know what I mean? It's really nice to be able to openly, because it helps me to think. Sure. I'm sure it does with everybody, but it does for me. So I really do appreciate the conversation and what you're trying to do or what you're doing. Another comment is that what we've done, we've been very successful. We have such a high rate of our employees, you know, seasonally that go to college. So we get a year or two out of them when they're in college, like they're done, because they go into internship. So we started hiring younger. But, you know, so you're really making me think your point about paying them, you know, the minimum, blah, blah, blah. But, so now we're now coming back. So I don't even know if the junior counselor program is actually something that we need to continue as much as we have. Because we had to bring them in young, so we have them, because we were getting, the turnover was high, and then we have to retrain, and it takes a whole season practically to get kids on board, you know, kind of thing. Just partly because of their age, and
The first job's tough. Yeah,
it is tough,
you have to
right?
learn how to be an employee.
Yeah, exactly. So, it really is important to me that you know that this is a really important conversation, and I'm really glad you came in and took the time to sit with us.
I appreciate
Appreciate
you
it.
in.
Yeah.
So are your titles junior counselor? I know you said you have 15-year-old counselor, but then like the manager, is that like strictly age-based, or is it like years-based, or is it
It's
kind of?
a mix, so what we've kind of settled on, so the program is broken into 2 groups. Each group has 3 employees, 2 counselors, and then a senior counselor that's kind of a group leader. I think we've hired between 4 and 5 senior counselors, and then above them is a rec manager. So every day you have a director, an assistant director, and a rec manager working. That's like your leadership team. Then you have 3 senior counselors, the counselors, and then below them, each, I think groups 1 and 2, each had a junior counselor for half the day, and then group 3 did not because they were older, we didn't want too close in age. So that's kind of the structure we've had.
I want to say that's a great structure, and you have more levels of management than town government does. That's really.
We've been really
Different conversation.
we've had a really solid, our rec director's been with us, I think this is his 14th summer. And so with this program, and really with him, this program has been able to evolve and put all that together and kind of figure out what works for us. And that's part of our struggle with the beach, is trying to now replicate that at the beach.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, so I think, to answer your question, it's usually we would promote to a senior counselor. We don't, almost never direct hire a senior counselor. We did it once and it was fine, but it maybe wasn't our best hire. So I think generally we look to promote internally, usually at least 1 or 2 years. I mean, this year, the potential people have multiple years of service because we just don't have those openings. This is a weird year, we're actually not interviewing any counselors. I had like 30-something applicants, we have no spots. If we promote all the junior counselors that are interested in returning, and everybody else, we're done. And that includes a few internal promotions, which is amazing, instead of sitting through 37 hours of endless interviews. It's
16 years.
every single one of them is a great candidate. It's not like we're, so it's honestly, it sucks doing the hiring. It's just trying to figure out who's like the least good employee or option. So yeah, I don't know. I see both sides of it. I do, I appreciate the points that maybe as a town, we want to be more consistent and, not take advantage of a potential loophole just because it's there. I mean, it's $2,000. $2,000 is a drop in the bucket. You could argue that lets us hire a few more of them or less, but we could do that. I don't think it's turning away anybody. We had 30-something applicants. There are no opportunities for 14-year-olds to get jobs around here other than farm work. And, I think Market Basket might be the only place that hires 15.
Yeah, and I want to be clear too, I don't think it's like a recruitment thing. I don't think you're expanding your applicant pool because you're hiring, or you're losing good folks because there other places are paying that. I don't really think we're in like a labor war for 14 or 15-year-olds. It creates the kind of organization that I would want to be a part of, that we're recognizing value of labor, even if they're even if they're younger, and it like comports with what we as like a state have said, this is what time should be compensated at.
I mean, I do know, to be on the other side of it, I remember having a conversation with someone that in another town where they pay their library people, it was a while ago, $7 an hour, and being like, that's insane. So I think from that side of it too.
I do actually like the idea too, of doing it before we're told to do it. You know what I mean? That's why I appreciate the conversation, because, this is gonna happen anyways, but your points definitely are valid to me, in my mind, so, but.
I'm trying to find this.
And if we were talking $35,000 or something. And
Yeah.
then let's talk about what's your revenue structure look like, and
Yeah.
is this sustainable, and, do we need to reconfigure what your counselor groups look like to be able to do, and how do we weigh that, fewer counselors versus paying them more, and how do we, but because I think you can deliver the same service with the same revenue, with the same folks for almost the same price, I think rather than making it seem like the town's been drug kicking and screaming because of state legislation, that we just kind of did what we thought we should do anyway.
Yeah,
I think the magnitude is also important.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you had any other comments or thoughts, or you want to just vote on it, or for?
Yeah, the motion, if you agree or don't agree, or?
Yeah, I think I'm fine with it. I understand AJ's point, and it's a lot of money, but maybe, politically, it's probably it's.
I think
I'll second.
All in favor?
We're not on 60. I'm sorry, Connecticut 60.
Aye,
not
sorry,
50.
AJ.
Yep.
No, you vote, okay.
Yep.
What does it even say? Oh,
We're back. All right, excellent.
that's a new thing.
Anything else you want to talk to us? Want to talk about the?
so. We do have the grounds and maintenance foreman position on our agenda, so we'll stick around for that.
Yeah, sure.
The, it looks like something went. Okay, hopefully this doesn't crap out, or else I'll record it on my computer if I need to. Yeah, so we went to the budget meeting, we presented the parks budget, and then we had an opportunity, John and I, to talk through this proposed new position. There was a lot of questions, and it seems to be a lot of, we're not all on the same page with what's being proposed. And I know, so John put together a new draft job description, which I can put on the screen.
Job description. They have that list.
Yeah, so I sat down and came up with a list of like every potential task that this person would do, and then tasks that I would be able to do.
It's all one document?
No, so the first 3 pages of would be the job posting or description. And
Okay.
this, round would be the new position.
Okay.
And
I'll just record audio on my computer. Go ahead and turn that back.
That's the.
I don't know, my takeaway from that meeting is it seems like we are not on the same page. I think the select board, certain members of the select board have something in their mind that they want for a position, which is great, but I don't think that's what we're proposing.
So there's kind of two sides to the house of this. There's the grounds maintenance, right? The time, to focus on
Grass.
Yeah, and landscaping and exterior sorts of stuff. And oversight of the seasonal park workers. That's one part of it. And then the other part of it is facilities. So like, I always go back to like the mini split, the compressor outside that blew. And Dan and I have talked about it for the last 6 months, and it like just started moving forward recently, but Dan's got 1,600 other things he's trying to do, and it like just doesn't. And so, and the example John uses all the time is like, the furnace here breaks, who's responsible for that, right? So a person to come in and diagnose the problem, get a consultant or get an outside person, get the quotes together, manage the work.
All right, I'll just record audio on my computer too, because I'm not waiting for this, whatever the heck is wrong with this. Yeah, I don't know, my takeaway from that meeting is.
No, I'm looking for the remote.
Oh, sorry. Just reminding me to turn that back up. Nobody will have audio. I don't know. My takeaway from that meeting is it seems like we are not on the same page. I think the select board, certain members of the select board have something in their mind that they want for a position, which is great, but I don't think that's what we're proposing.
So there's kind of two sides of the house of this. There's the grounds maintenance, right? The time, the focus on
Grass.
and landscaping and exterior sorts of stuff, and oversight of the seasonal park workers. That's one part of it. And then the other part of it is facilities. So like I always go back to like the mini split, the compressor outside that blew. And Dan and I have talked about it for the last 6 months, and it like we just started moving it forward recently, but Dan's got 1,600 other things he's trying to do, and it like just doesn't. And so, and the example John uses all the time is like, the furnace here breaks. Who's responsible for that, right? So, so a person to come in and diagnose the problem, get a consultant or get an outside person, get the quotes together, manage the work, pay the invoice, all that kind of stuff, where it kind of slips through the cracks on who's responsible for that. So that's kind of two sides of the house of it. The way select board sees it, and I understand the point, is that if we put this position into the highway union, the grounds maintenance piece of it seems to fit within the mandate of what a highway union person does, whereas the facilities piece of it seems kind of wedged into a union role in ways that's not what the union was kind of designed for. And if in the future we think that we need more than this fractional position to be able to do facilities maintenance, that then pulling it out of the union would be difficult or at least inadvisable. So they're concerned about merging these two into one position and placing it within the highway union. So what I talked briefly about in the meeting, which I didn't think I was going to, and I said something to Dan yesterday, is having, see what their support is for a 40-hour-a-week highway foreman for grounds. And have that in highway, have it based upon grounds, from April to October or whatever. It's, the seasonal work and it's based on work. And then, participate in the snow and ice removal part, do all the regular stuff the rest of the year. And then have a, 19-hour-a-week, non-union part-time position in the select board office that's focused on facilities. Have a facilities manager and completely divorced the two. I don't know how much legs that has, because that's just a whole other body in your department, and I don't know the appetite for that, but I'm trying to be a little creative in that what we presented seems not what, it seems like the incremental middle ground that doesn't appease either folk, doesn't totally appease the parks piece of it, and doesn't totally appease the.
I think, the grounds portion, you put a designated grounds person down there on their highway, I don't think that's a problem. You get them in the union, they have the equipment, they can use it. If you make a facilities person that's not in the union, still can be in highway, you guys can pull it out. down the road if you would like to, but we still have that during the work order system. We have just somebody to manage it and track it. To me, that's just the money issue, whether we want full-time and a part-time position.
Yeah, I just don't think we can afford 80 hours for this. Like, I think justifying 80 hours for this sort of work, because getting from, we're not doing anything in terms of facilities maintenance on a coordinated level to, we're gonna go whole hog 40 hours. I think they would have a lot of work for the first 2 years.
Yeah, and that's what, kind of what this facilities list on here is work that needs to be done now. We're not 80 hours, it would be 60.
I mean, I think the phrase I liked, I think Jody used it at negotiations, was leveraging the seasonal nature of the position. You know, because there's not a lot of landscaping to get done in January, February. You know, sure they can work on the equipment, but there's so much other stuff that, you know, you might not have that year-round level. You know, in the summer it might be cut back to just emergencies. But if you have somebody whose job it is, they can take all that time in the winter to really dive into some of these projects. I'm sure there's more. Some of that is stuff that's been done just very recently. It was just kind of a stream of consciousness of every project that.
Yeah, because a lot of these are like, you know, just
One time.
Exactly.
But I think they're examples of the stuff that.
They wanted examples of the stuff that the facilities person would be.
There'll be 20 more of those when those are done.
There's gonna be routine maintenance that's gonna have to be dealt with, and then there's going to be examples like that where it's a one-off thing that needs to be taken
Yeah,
care of.
because I'm thinking too, like, you know, all the AEDs, check the batteries in the pads,
Yeah.
every piece of HVAC you have, you know the filters, like, what fire extinguishers and, you know, also, whatever those kind of yearly things are that right now fall to the department heads, have that be in facilities.
I mean, my confusion last night, like, I think you're still gonna, come on. You're still gonna keep the department heads, you know, like, I don't necessarily, sorry, let me just start this recording in. I don't think this position is replacing, like, what the department heads do. Like, I think, you know, like, the parks, like, I'm still writing that grant, I'm still planning the high level of that project, but then this position helps us execute it, so I'm not having to, you know, go there and meet the electrician and open up gates and deal with all that, but we wrote the grant. Yeah, thank you. You've got our mind.
We could also add, fix that, because that door doesn't latch.
Yeah, that door doesn't latch.
The strike plate and the
Oh,
latch
yeah.
don't line up.
Like, there's tons of those where somebody with a
That's
screwdriver
the-
could fix.
the little things.
Like, I think it's that level, you know, we're not looking, I mean, I don't think this position's meant to be like the high level, somebody with an engineering degree or a huge, you know, massive background in.
Because the thing that Jack shared was like a
Right.
$45 an hour,
That's-
40-week position on the Cape, and it's like,
Like
With
Ken,
an
like the
engineering
school.
degree.
yeah, and
A
that
plant.
community's 3.5 times the size of us.
Uh-huh.
And it's less.
But that would like
That's
that,
why I
like,
couldn't find it.
I'm thinking of like Ken Schwarnier, the school district. He's the facility manager for the schools, but he has all those high level certifications. That's very different. And that'd be great here, but I don't think what we are doing here. Whatever.
Yeah, what I would actually envision this position, or hope this position could evolve to, would be a shared position with the schools, and be, you know, 2020.
That is a conversation, maybe, I know I've had it with my father. I think they have a need for that where,
Because this gentleman's retiring shortly.
yeah, and I think one of their struggles is, you know, you have custodians, but then you don't have people that are in that little bit step up that can do some of those handyman type projects.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting conversation that maybe could happen with them.
But anyway, I think there was a demonstrated desire for an additional grounds person to, this is dumbing it down too much, but to get Dan off a lawnmower 3 months a year.
Hmm.
You know, and, you know, the extrapolative nature of that too. So I think it's incumbent on us, Dan really to say, here's the things, and you said it's in here, here's the things that I'm gonna do. Anyway, like I know folks have said to me, like, recreation programs outside of just the summer months.
That's the first thing, increased summer program, more events at the beach, fall, spring programming.
Yeah, fall, spring program, vacation program. I
yeah.
hear that with folks a lot, vacation program.
You know, things
Those are all
like,
things that Dan would be able to focus on and not having to do the mowing.
and I think I maybe didn't articulate it at the meeting as, you know, it's stuff that is in my current job description. It's not like new things. I'm not suddenly doing this new task, but it's something that I was spending 5 minutes on that now I can spend 5 hours on. That's, I think, the difference here. You know,
I saw the CPC article for kayaks. That's exciting.
yeah, even something like that. So like somebody reaches out with a potential program that, you know, we have to meet with them, we have to come up with a plan, present it. I've actually had this conversation with Mike Goddard, like we're kind of doing one at a time because that's all we have the bandwidth for. You know, we have this massive lighting project. I can't have 10 other projects and all our hiring and all this, you know, versus if I didn't have to worry about, you know, the mowing, I can just say, hey, you know, can you have that person go pick up that tree branch that fell? That frees me up to focus on higher level tasks, I guess, is the best way to say it. You know, I kind of feel like a lot of the parks, you know, we're having a lot of, things are falling apart and we're not keeping up with it. And some of that's work this position can help with, and some of that it's work that I can do because I'm not doing that work.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and maybe, I don't know. I feel like this position, you know, like this may not be the right way to do it or the perfect, you know, but let's get somebody in here, see how it goes, and the position will definitely evolve. But I think we can't just keep doing nothing.
Which is what's been happening. How long are we talking about getting a full-time position to handle grounds or parks maintenance, and it just goes nowhere?
So if the position was just grounds, would you want it, does it have to be at the foreman level? Or can it be just an additional HEO position? Because if they're just supervising seasonal staff for a few months out of the year and then not doing that kind of manager or director level stuff for the facilities piece where they're just folded into the highway crew the rest of the year?
I think it's fine to get those guys, right? I mean, that's what they want,
I think adding the foreman to that is gonna bring you higher quality candidates.
And do you think that then there's any sort of issue, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna call parks work 6 months and then other stuff the other 6 months. Those 6 months where it's, you know, more focused on highway stuff rather than park stuff, is there any sort of issue having 2 foremen on your crew?
You just know that it's gonna be, that's gonna come from me, that whatever the job it may be, this person is going to be the foreman. Because if we pull the grounds person in November to help with pothole repair, or March to help with pothole repair, the highway foreman is the one in charge of that project. Now, on the flip side, if we pull the highway foreman to a grounds position, a grounds job in the summer, the grounds foreman is the one that's in charge of that.
I think my only comment, so from the union hat, is if you're asking somebody to supervise, that might need to be accounted for in some manner. Maybe not a full job title change, but you know, that's something extra that the average worker on the highway crew is not doing. You know, that's going to be a big part of this job, I think, is training and working with kids. That's a certain type of person, not like kids, but young adults.
So none of the guys down there have a problem with this position. I don't foresee there being a problem with it if it was just a grounds position, the grounds foreman.
I would say from my perspective, I think it kind of could be the night. I think some of this, I think by integrating things, it will actually lessen the potential for issues. I think some of those issues came because it was like us versus them. And by getting it under one umbrella, I think that changes the conversation. And
the interesting dilemma that we're facing is that today's younger person isn't mowing their parents' lawn anymore. You know, they're not doing any kind of work in the house, so they're coming to us with zero experience. And that's probably was